Oh, hi, I'm Leslie. I'm almost 60. And I'm from a family, the eldest son of from a family of three boys. So I'm the eldest boy. My younger brother, he's about a year and a half younger than me, and then the youngest brother was born in 1970, which makes him 6 years younger than me. Yeah. So I grew up in Serangoon Gardens. I think I was lucky. I didn't grow up in a kampong, so I grew up, I guess, sort of maybe lower middle class sort of background. We stayed in Serangoon Gardens. My father was a school teacher, so I went to school. We stayed in my grandma's house, so we were all like an extended family. We all squeezed in there, so it was quite nice. A bit crowded because my cousins were all there as well. We all grew up in Serangoon Gardens. My father was a school teacher at the primary school there in Serangoon Gardens. It's closed down already at school. I went to that school, but they closed down. So all my childhood memories was of that Serangoon area. And even when we moved later on to Ang Mo Kio, I still went back to Serangoon Gardens because my grandma was there. My school was still there, and I took music lessons there. So I started music lessons, piano lessons quite young there. I was very fortunate, like I said. And then eventually I became a musician. So I'm a classical musician. I play the cello. But primary school days was fun because, although like I said, we grew up in relatively middle class background, most of my friends were not from that background. They all stayed in kampong. There was a lot of kampongs around the area, Plantation Avenue and everything. So it was quite nice in those days. And you know, life was simple. You didn't really have to study. I happened to be quite okay with my studies, but I think compared to what the kids do these days, you know, I don't even understand their primary one math question. It sounds like an English question more than a math question. It's so confusing. For us, 1 + 1 = 2, and that was it. And then, you know, and you go to the canal at the back of the school to catch fish, and I was not into catching spiders and grasshoppers. Like insects was not my thing. But it was, yeah, there was football, marbles, that sort of thing. So it was good fun. So Serangoon Gardens was a nice place. Oh, sorry, my cat. Serangoon Gardens was a nice place to grow up in because, well, most people associate Serangoon Gardens with Chomp Chomp, the food court, the hawker center, you know, very famous one. I think one of the first food centers in Singapore, Chomp Chomp. But I remember hanging out in this second-hand bookstore called NIB. We used to hang out there, and you could either buy the books for very cheap. Some of them were new books, but mostly were like, you know, what they call pre-loved or whatever. You just, it's old books, but very well taken care of. And those nicer quality ones, the better quality ones, the newer ones, would cost you just a bit more, but still cheaper than like if you had gone to the bookshop. And then they had the really old ones, and those were cheaper. But you could always buy rent them, read it, and then return it. And so most of us did that because it actually made a lot of sense. I mean, you know, you have books and you keep them in the shelf, and you never ever read them again, right? So that for me, that was very fond. That was a very fond memory of my education in Serangoon Gardens. Going to this bookshop called NIB, always hanging out there, reading the books, borrowing them. That was fun. So I think growing up, I was also, like I said, apart from being, I was fortunate in the sense that also because my dad was a school teacher, every day I had to write. My father was an English teacher, so I do a lot of composition. Every day there was something for me to do at home. I had to finish there was really very little homework, so my dad made me write composition, made me do stuff. So I was quite proficient in English by the time I finished my PSLE. So PSLE for me was a breeze because, you know, my dad, we didn't have tuition, but my dad was preparing me for it already lah. I didn't even know that he was preparing me for it, and so it was a choice of, in the end, we applied to RI or Wheatley, and I got into RI. So I was like very thankful. And actually for me, everyone talked about RI, but for, you know, I think as a child you don't even know what's really a good school or what's a bad school. I mean, you just go to school and that's it, you know. But well, RI was RI, and I kind of enjoyed my first year there. I enjoyed so much that from 1D I went to 2F because I really thought it was good fun. You know, you didn't study at all. You brought your primary school ethics into secondary school, and you know, study what? You know, nobody tell you to study. And so then I went 2F, and then I went into metalwork class. It just got worse and worse. RI days was fun for me, but by secondary 2, Sec 1, Sec 2, I was also very involved in music already at that time, and there was a youth orchestra on the side, so I spent a lot of time joining ECA outside of the school. So I was actually quite removed. After the first couple of years, I started getting quite distant from my peers in school, because everyone went to do their things. They had, then when by Sec 3 they all went out and dating other people and mixing with the girls from other schools. I was just so geeky, I was so into music, I was so eventually, and I was not into sports. So you know, RI had a big rugby culture and all that. I was totally removed from it, you know, and so I really never hung out, and I guess in that sense I lost out in that. During that period, I didn't get to mix with a lot of peers. So now if you ask me, if I do recognize names, but faces I don't remember anymore, and even at reunions I don't go because I don't remember anyone. It takes me a long time for the memory to come back, you know, and it's because I was spending a lot of time outside of school. But that's all I remember of RI. I also got in trouble at RI with my Chinese teacher because I said something, I used a bad word on him, and I think he heard me. Then I got caught, and my mom had to go into school to apologize, you know, and that sort of thing. So, but yeah, so I really, then I got caught by a prefect for running along the corridor. Those days you couldn't run along the corridor. I don't know what it was about, or just a power play, you know, running along the corridor. I got hauled up for disciplinary action and all that. So I never really. Still right now I don't have fond memories. I don't have awful memories of RI, but I don't have like, oh, rosy, fond, warm memories. No, none of that. And then by Sec 4, I did very badly in my O levels. I couldn't go into any pre-U. I couldn't go to JC. I only could go to, back then you had this thing called pre-U centers. You did a pre-U in 3 years. So I got thrown into Ang Mo Kio Secondary School. And I was quite happy because then I got really to mix with people who couldn't really study that well, and so you know. But I also knew, because I was in PU Center for about 6 months, and I knew that I had gotten a scholarship at 16 to go to London already. So I was just bumming around for the first few months, and then after that I went off. So I was kind of happy during that first few months of my PU Center days, post O levels and pre London days. So I went away quite young at 16. I've gone abroad before, but never in a plane, you know what I'm saying? So I remember that was those days. Was it Changi Airport? Yes, it was Changi Airport, just built, you know. And you go on there and you go in, and then I remember you were Toto Swaku, you know, first time traveling, and they had the travel laters, right? You stand there and I was like, do I jump on the travelator and I don't know where it's going to take me, or do I walk? So I had to ask this Ang Mo guy, a tourist or whatever, you know. I said, you know, where does this lead me to? He said, oh, no difference, you can either do this or you can walk. So I just hopped on the travelator. I'd never seen such a thing before, right? I mean, obviously you don't want to jump on something that'll take you away from your plane or something. So yeah, that was my first big trip abroad. I remember when I first got my first letter from my parents. When I was in London, I was just crying because it was like suddenly you had no connection with home, and then that first letter came, you know. It's just so wonderful feeling to have that first letter from your parents. And even phone calls was such a, you had to arrange when to call, and you had to go to the public phone and take a lot of coins, no phone card, even a lot of coins, and you just keep putting in, and then long distance call, you know. If you think about it, like, I think those were the days when things didn't come easy to you. But you remember it, you value it. Now things come so easily, you know, you forget. I think you've lost that value of events and things, and effort always makes things, make you love and treasure things better, I think. So then I was in London for 3 years, and by 19 I started working already. Yeah, my trajectory was very fast, and I actually hated it because I graduated at 19 and I wanted to carry on studying, but the scholarship only provided for 3 years. So I had to come back because it was scholarship from the Singapore Symphony Orchestra, and I had to come back. I asked for an extension and they refused to give me an extension, so I had to come back. So at 19, when most people go into university, I was working already, and I grew up angry. I was lucky, then I grew up. At 19, I was very angry because I felt that I still could study. I wanted to study, right? And I didn't have that chance to study. So I was working. And then, although I have to be thankful that I had a job lined up now, but at 19, come on, who works at 19, right? I mean, you work at 19 if you are forced to, if you drop out of school and you become a laborer, or you work as a hawker assistant at 19 maybe, but as a, musician at 19, I was like, oh man. But I guess, as a scholar at 19, it was just like, I thought, what a waste. I could have done a lot more. But I cannot complain lah. You take what life gives you, and I've been fortunate a lot of the time. For the first 3 months, I went for BMT, then finished BMT, then I was enrolled at Music and Drama. So during the day, I worked at SSO, and in the afternoon, I went to Music and Drama, Army. But I didn't get full pay lah. I was on Army pay lah. It's one of those things, and the bond was for 8 years. Nowadays, back then the bond was just crazy, 8 years, right? Nowadays, I think you serve like 6 years or less, much less. I think the thinking then was just not as enlightened as now. Yeah. Actually, Army also very funny because during BMT, because I was a scholar, right? Yeah. So they said, okay, you're going to Tekong. So I went to Tekong, then I realized actually I'm not supposed to be in Tekong, because I knew from President that another batch came before me, music scholars, did regular BMT, and it was in Yishun. So I told them, I said, there's a mistake, must be. So it took them a day, then I was waiting at Tekong, and then finally they sent me back to Yishun. I was late at Yishun for I think a day, but they took me back to Yishun because they knew they finally found out I was going to Music and Drama, so there was no need for me to go into but there's always this left hand didn't know what right hand was doing, because in the middle of BMT also they called me up, go for an interview, because I think you can be in the military police and all this sort of stuff, I'm like, no, I'm not going to be a military police, because I'm going to be in SSO and Music and Drama. I'm very sure of that because that was what they promised. So then in the end, yeah, it worked out now. Breakfast got choice of croissant, this and toast, and I'm like, wow, you get the char bee hoon, the rubber band bee hoon, you're lucky. You know what I'm saying? Got choice, you want coffee, you want Milo, you want, it's different, very different. So I mean, yeah, so those Army days was quite nice. I mean, 2.5 years of it, yeah. I must say that I really enjoyed Army, because I enjoyed the discipline that Army gave you. And when I went there, I was with a bunch, I was not with people of my age, right? And they were all, I think, secondary school, either O-levels or dropouts, right? So, but then you could tell that when we went to training and everything, I didn't like the training, nobody likes Army training, but I could appreciate the discipline. A lot of them were just all over the place, like just very messy, and you always kena tekan because someone in the group that don't care, and there's no discipline at all. So I appreciated the discipline that Army gave me. Also, as a musician, I had a certain amount of discipline already, because you have to practice, you have to do this thing. But then the Army reinforced it. I appreciated it. I could see that how things can work with that discipline. But then after Army, I served up my bond. I served up my bond in SSO, 8 years. And then I served 1 more year. On my 9th year, I packed up and I left for Russia. I spent 2 years in Russia. I spent 2 years there on my own funds, but it was quite cheap. My school fees was 5,000 USD. I mean, you're talking about 1993 lah, so it's still quite a lot of money, but it's still nothing. 2 years, and then plus a bit of spending. Fine, I didn't have to pay. Once you got in, you didn't have to pay for dormitory. I mean, 5,000 included dormitory and all that, and then, I had the power of foreign currency. So living in Russia for me then was quite nice because it was still cheap. They had just opened up. Yeah, they had just opened up. Perestroika had just happened, right? In fact, I remember that the very trip, that day I went to Russia, that week, the communists tried to overthrow the democratic government, and Yeltsin was somehow in charge, and the dormitory was just like about 400 yards away from their White House, right, which is the government building. And I remember you could hear gunshots, you could hear cannons going off because they were fighting, and at night you could see flares going. And I thought, oh shit, my first week in Russia, I had to queue for bread already. I thought this no more. I thought you queue for bread in Soviet Russia, but then after the first week, because people were panicking again. So, but I think in the early 90s, mid 90s in Russia was very exciting because a lot of change was happening. So your ruble kept fluctuating, government kept changing, people kept getting killed because it was very lawless, like it was just no law at all, and the mafia was the gangsters took over very quickly. So it was very exciting, a lot of change. I've not been back since 95, so it's like what, more than how many years is that, 20 years or something? 30 years. And I know that it's changed very much. I'd still like to go back, but I don't know. When I first left, when I graduated, I came back to Singapore. I really wanted to go back, but now I've lost a bit of it. I guess I'm a bit influenced by the politics and all that, but I shouldn't be lah. I shouldn't be influenced. Every country has just very screwed up politics. And I look at America, right? I mean, we still go there and all that. So I feel like, yeah, or if you don't agree, like politics in China is still a wonderful place to go and visit because people are nice, nothing to do with people, you know what I'm saying? So I would still like to. My plan was from Russia, I was going to take after graduation, I was going to take the train, the Trans-Siberian, all the way across and then stop off in Japan and then fly back. But I had my cello with me, and if I thought maybe I could hand it to my parents or something if they had visited, but no one came to visit me then, and then having the cello on the Trans-Siberian is just not practical at all. So, but yeah, so that was my plan, and it's still something that I like to do. Actually, I like to travel across Russia, and then not just Trans-Siberian, but make a detour down to these Uzbekistan and Kazakhstan and all the Stan states, all the Central Asian states, and then go into China and then come back down, or maybe from there then go back up again. And I think once make a detour, then across and then come Central Asia and then China and come down already. It's something that I don't know now these days whether it's even possible, because it was possible to go through Afghanistan even, now it's not possible. I mean, you can, but you run the risk of whatever lah. So yeah, but my Russia day was good. The art was just, you go to Russia and then this is in the 90s, right, and you appreciate it because it was, for me, I mean, everyone talk about Europe and all that, but in Russia it was real center of the arts because the famous poets, authors, novelists, musicians, composers, everyone, a lot of them came from Russia, right? And that tradition was so strong. And during the communist era, during the Soviet era, everything was very cheap. So tickets were like, like $1, you go and see a concert. Go to museum, 50 cents. Everything was subsidized. Everything was so cheap. Every night I went for concerts. Every night. Like, you don't even have to worry about paying. You just and the regular folk, they went for concerts because this is all they had. Right, TV was not very exciting for them, it's all communist programs or whatever. They had a bit, then Western programs started coming in, you could go to movies but you had to pay a lot more. But you go to a concert, like $1, and it's just nothing, it's like everyone, it was just so wonderful. I think art, literature, culture was in full flourish during the communist era. I think for me it's a trade-off. I think a lot of people will hate me for saying that, but during that period everything was subsidized, and was just so wonderful. I mean, the pay was horrible. I know some of the head of departments in the music faculty, they were being paid like 30, 50 US dollars a month. But they had, the people at the top, they had an apartment for themselves because it was state subsidized. They had an apartment and all that sort of thing. But I guess money-wise, it was never an easy thing. I lived in Russia, and my memories are rosy and fuzzy because I had the power of the credit card. American Express, that was the only bank there that, Western bank. So I remember getting an American Express, and I could go to the bank and just withdraw cash from American Express. And with that, my life was so pleasant, and a lot of foreigners had that more pleasant life in Soviet Russia, or Russia at that time, 30 years ago. I think comparing, let's say, Beijing and Shanghai back in the day, different, very different. Yeah, or you compare Ho Chi Minh and Hanoi, the architecture is different. Yeah. It's in Azerbaijan, and you can smell, you walk, you can smell, what's that? Then you realize it's petrol smell. The whole city got that, when you're near the water also like oily one, the sea, it's the petrol, it's oil, it's gas. So I mean, I think it's interesting. For me, I like to go, if I have the chance, I mean, those are the places, I think, these are the Central Asia I like to travel. Possibly with my bicycle, that would be even better. And then, or South America, but for me, to go to places like that, you need 3 months, 2 months, you know what I'm saying? Not a long, it's like, no point going there 2 weeks, come back, it's like you touch the surface, and I might as well just sit and watch National Geographic, you know what I'm saying? Spend 2 months or 1 month, at least just drop everything, go there 1 month. For me, that would be a nice way to travel. So I'd like to do that. Let me know if you want to do that. In music, there is the thing. Music and architecture, I think the same. So the Baroque with Baroque music also, Rococo, I think very, very similar. I think the difference between music and architecture is art in space. It stays there. Music, I don't know how to say lah. Music just happens, and then it keeps repeating itself. If you want, you play the piece, right? But it's just for that moment, and then it just goes away. I mean, yes, of course, everything is composed, right, in paper. But with architecture, you see the building there. Right? With music, you hear, and then it's gone already. It's like becomes a memory. So it's a bit more elusive in that way, lah. Right? It becomes a memory, but with paint, with architecture, is always there. And actually, with music, the thing is, the composer may say, let's say Shostakovich, the Russian one, he's quite, some of his music, I don't know how it says, a bit more brutal, more brutalist, that kind, right? But different people play slightly differently. So, but architecture, once you have your building design and built, is there in music. But there's always been in the history of music the same. The Baroque, the Rococo, everything is like the modern. Everything changes. Yeah, after Russia, I came back. Then after a few years, I rejoined the Singapore Symphony. Then after that, I decided I wanted to go to America. Then I went to America with my quartet. That's when the Tang Quartet, right? I went with them. We decided we wanted to go and study. So I was at 33, a student again at 33. I was a student at 16 to 19. Then I had 10 years of work, 9 years. Then at 29, I became a student again. At 33, I became a student again. I went to do my master's at 33 in America. That's when the whole life cycle of the Tang Quartet sort of around then started. So actually, the quartet started before I went to Russia. So in my late 20s, we started the quartet, but my guys were just like not knowing what they wanted to do, turning up late for work and stuff. I was like, okay guys, I'm not going to wait for you. I'm 29, I'm fucking off, and that's it. Why do I need to wait for you, right? I went, I said, you guys decide, you want me, you let me know. So after my first year, they said, why don't you come back? I said, okay, give me 1 more year. So I came back. And then, then we rebooted the quartet again, and I felt they were serious. And then we indeed went away to study. That was the good thing. And at first we thought, At first I thought, oh, they want to just go away for summer school and that sort of thing, you know. I thought, oh, then eventually, I thought the least committed of them said, why don't we just go and do 2 years, you know, or 1 year? I'm like, wow. So that was the best thing for me. No regrets. I mean, I've left the quartet already. And then we all 4 of us went away to do a course, a master's, 4 people, you know, as one actually, right? 4 different pieces, but 4 people going together as a group to study was quite unusual. So our lives were very tight together when we were in America. We had 2 apartments. We shared 2 apartments. We had 1 car. We shared. So every day go to school, practice, have lesson, or practice, then go home. Every day was like that. Go shopping also must go together because we got 1 car only. So our lives was just joined at the hip, really like Siamese twins like that. It was quite amazing. We were on the scene at the right time. We flew the flag for Singapore. We pushed the levels up. We changed the scene a little bit. I can safely say that we did help promote the scene, musical scene. So no regrets. So basically, when you do that in music studies, a lot of it is practical. You're like an intern immediately already, and you see whatever. Of course, you have lessons, but then if there are jobs, you go and take jobs and that sort of thing. I think that's slightly different. There's very little theory. There's some theory, but a lot of it is to do with our instrument. Because we need to learn how to play. I mean, you can study all the theory, but if you don't spend time practicing, it's like an athlete and as a sports. I mean, you can study sports science, but you cannot go and run. You cannot kick the football, and you have to go on the field and go and kick one. So that's what music is basically. It's very different. Not really, because as a musician already, you know that you need to practice a certain amount of hours a day, or you need to deliver, you need to get the movements correct, you need to find a way to... Basically, a lot of music is muscle memory, and you need to find that consistent in muscle memory. That consistency comes with practice. That's it. So that discipline, so every time you nail it, if I throw a dart, it needs to hit the bullseye every time, and it's only this particular one. If I do this, I cannot. So if always millimeter out, cannot. It's just spot on laser accuracy. That's what a lot of music is about. And then also knowing, like, I want a particular sound, how much pressure I remember, how much weight in my arms, how your muscles work in relation to the rest of your body will produce. But in relation to the instrument, we have like this particular place where we place the bow, and you get a particular sound, a particular tonal color, that sort of thing. It's just very, it needs to be very laser focused. And then you practice it to the point that it comes across as easy. But that is that discipline. So that bothers me. Nowadays you have a lot of, I mean, you have people who have done well in their lives as an engineer or doctor or financier or whatever, banker. Then midlife they decide, I want to be an artist, I want to paint, I want to conduct. And I'm like, we spend our whole life doing it. I think you might be very talented, maybe you can but it's like, can you imagine if I decide tomorrow I think I go and rent a space in Gleneagles and become a neurosurgeon? Is the equivalent? You know what I'm saying? I think there's that lack of respect, right, that people have for artists. Oh, I want to paint. Yeah, anyone can paint, but no, we spend the whole life thinking of colors, thinking of technique and all that. Then suddenly you just go there and you just whatever. Maybe it can be done, but I don't. I'm from the old school. I don't agree with this. I don't agree with this.
Yeah.
Like there's less and less shame in the world already, especially with social media even. But this idea of retiring when you are in your midlife and doing something, being immersed in the arts, this is even before advent of social media. But now with social media, there's no shame. You do anything you put on social media, we become so numb to bad quality that there's no shame. It doesn't matter. Then if you're lucky, you become successful. If you're not, people don't even, you know what I'm saying? People, maybe it's courageous, you can think of it, but I think I don't think it's courageous. I think it's just a lack of self-awareness and shame. That's it.
Oh, I like that one.
don't know, I look back at my life and I think, did I do much? I think, yeah, some things I've done enough. I think with regards to my career, I think I've touched some lives, that, our lives, our paths crossed, and I think I have touched lives, but I don't think it's such a big deal lah. Anyway, what I'm doing is only music. It's not like I'm saving lives, you know what I'm saying? So I just hope that, no, I don't think that I still feel like I'm still learning, like about life, about people, about how to be a human being. That I think that's the most important thing. I don't think I can share anything lah. I don't have anything to share lah. And art and culture, I think is not a luxury, it's a necessity. I think art, music, all this what we talk about, right, opens our minds to possibilities. It's just like, I feel like math opens your mind to possibilities as well, because you have different equations and you work things out, and I think it's just that some people don't think in terms of mathematics, some people think in terms of music or in terms of drawing. So I think everyone's different, and I think this offers some of us who think differently a different pathway. But it does for sure, music and art gives you something that math and science cannot give you, which is a generosity of spirit. It's very different, right? I think to be an artist, you need to be generous, you need to be giving, you need to be observant as well. You need to be observant, and then you need to, some people follow rules, and sometimes in some aspects of the arts you have rules to follow, but I think arts have always encouraged people to follow rules, or to be mindful of rules, but please break out of the rules, to break out and extend yourself and to discover new things. So I think that's what is very crucial that's why the arts are very crucial, because I don't think any other discipline offers you that. So I still feel that you need boundaries, like just the body has that skeleton and that skin, but what we do with the body, you want to build it up, or you want to get fat, you want to get skinny, it's another matter, but the structure is still there, right? It's just like a building needs a foundation, and how you build around it, or what structure it takes, but the foundation needs to be solid. So the foundation needs to be, so there are rules and regulations that we have to be mindful of before we can explore. Otherwise, it's just chaos. It's not just chaos, it's anarchy, it's just wrong. I think that's why we go back to what I said about middle-aged successful people who quit their day jobs and suddenly want to become a painter or musician or conductor. I mean, just to wave the stick around. I don't agree with that. We spend years honing that skill. So I think it's a very, very, very important thing. Discipline, going back to discipline, I think. Yesterday I just played with some young kids who were in teens, late teens, mid-late teens. And I know that eventually they won't do music, because they already said as much. This violinist, brilliant violinist, who wants to do chemistry. Or she didn't say she wants to do chemistry, she'll be doing chemistry. And this other lady, other girl, also brilliant violinist and violist, very nice on the viola, wants to do English, or will do English. So after the concert I said, are you sure you still want to do chemistry? And she was like, oh, and are you sure you want to do English? I'm not sure. I think perhaps the parents want them to do something. My parents certainly thought doing music was a stupid thing until I got the scholarship, then they bo pian, right? Parents fear for our lives, but these days the world has changed so much, and I complain about the world changing and social media and all that influencing us so much. But the world view nowadays with younger people is more lateral, more on the horizon, not vertical but horizontal. So if I don't see anything here, I move over. There's always something. If you draw a circle around you, there's always so many angles to look at, and I think that should be the way. And I'm learning it from a lot of young people as well. And it's also not. So I think the worry is from the parents is that there's no money, but they won't be happy eventually. But what's happiness? Happiness is doing something that you want to do, Happiness is not giving up what you want to do and going to study something else so that you may become successful. You may not also, right? You may be successful and you may become rich and you use that money to buy you happiness. That one is another gamble. Why don't I just gamble on music, right? And I become happy while I'm doing it because it's something that I want to do, and hopefully I'm good enough to be successful, right? If I'm not good enough to be successful, then I can always, after a certain time, if you're in your early 20s, okay, you pivot and do something else. Let's say for music, nowadays you do music, you're not good enough, you're not good enough to be a performer. You can be music teacher, which everybody traditionally does, or you can become a music therapist, or you can, let's say, become a recording engineer. All these things can be, just because you study architecture doesn't mean that your whole career you need to build buildings, you need to design. No, it doesn't work that way, right? So I feel that parents and kids should allow themselves the luxury of saying, I want to be happy. I'm in my teens, I give myself until my mid-20s to be really happy doing what I want. If I cannot find success with what I want to do while I'm happy, I will do something else. In my mid-20s, it's still not too late, right? And that journey is very important. I mean, the idea of, I was thinking about my conversations with these students yesterday, and I'm thinking, oh gosh, so now you are saying that you want to give up something that you're happy doing to do something which you think may buy you happiness in the future. When you think about it, it's wrong, right? You don't even know chemistry will buy you happiness, but you think maybe when I'm in my 20s, I'll get married, I have a job, and then I have a chemistry degree and I get a job, I may become happy. I don't think so. You're just shifting you shift now, then by 20s you get married, then you're happy for a while, then you're bored, then you have babies, then you are happy for a while. And you know what I'm saying? It's just kicking the can down the road, you know what I'm saying? So I feel like it's the journey, isn't it? It's the journey that makes you happy. And I think when you think of it, back in the day people died at 60, now people die at 90, so we've got another 30 years extension already. You can actually essentially now be happy until your 30s and then decide what you want to do, and if it doesn't work out, change job, doesn't matter. The world is more interesting, it's a more interesting place than what it was before. It was not as simple before, it was more black and white, but it's more complicating now, but that makes it more interesting as well. And I think we should just go and do what we really want to do. It's that journey that counts.